directed by Enlil. The god who spoke out for the mutineers was Enki. It was Enki who suggested and undertook the creation of primitive workers. Enki emerges as mankind's protagonist, Enlil as its strict discipliner, if not outright antagonist. The role of deity wishing to keep the new humans sexually suppressed, and of deity willing and capable of bestowing on mankind the fruit of knowing, fit Enlil and Enki perfectly. After man's acquisition of knowing, the Old Testament ceases to refer to him as the Adam and adopts its subject Adam, a specific person, the first patriarch of a line of people with whom the Bible was concerned. But this coming of age of mankind also marked a schism between God and man. Cast out of the abode of the gods, doomed to a mortal's life, but able to procreate, man proceeded to do just that. The Old Testament is an ongoing tale of human events henceforth anchored in the lineage of Adam through his son Seth and then the 10 generations more, ending with Noah, the hero of the Deluge. Humanity, it appears, was undergoing great deprivations when Noah was born. The stage was set for the Deluge, the momentous event which was to wipe off the face of the earth not only the human race, but all life upon the land and in the skies. And the deity saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth. And the deity repented that he had made man upon the earth, and his heart grieved. And the deity said, I will destroy the earthling whom I have created off the face of the earth. These are broad accusations, presented as justifications for drastic measures to end all flesh. But they lack specificity. The scholars and the theologians alike find no satisfactory answers regarding the sins or violations that could have upset the deity so much. The repeated use of the term flesh, both in the accusative verses and in the proclamations of judgment, suggest, of course, that the corruptions and violations had to do with the flesh. However, there is a profusion of text describing love-making and actual intercourse among the gods. Such gods could hardly turn against mankind for behaving as they themselves did. The deity's motive, we find, was not merely concern for human morals. The mounting disgust was caused by a spreading defilement of the gods themselves. It was when the sons of the gods began to be sexually involved with earthlings' offspring that the deity cried, Enough! And the deity said, My spirit shall not shield man forever. Having strayed, he is but flesh. The spirit of the gods, their genetic perfection of mankind, was beginning to deteriorate. Mankind had strayed, thereby reverting to being but flesh, closer to its animal origins. Noah alone continued to be genetically pure. Thus, the deity decided to save Noah and his descendants, and every clean animal and other beast and fowls, so as to keep the seed alive upon the face of the earth. And it came to pass after the 7 days that the waters of the deluge were upon the earth. What was this deluge, this flood, whose raging waters swept over the earth? Some explain the flood in terms of the annual inundations of the Tigris-Euphrates plain. One such inundation, it is surmised, must have been particularly severe. Fields and cities, men and beasts were swept away by the rising waters, and primitive peoples, seeing the event as punishment by the gods, began to propagate the legend of a deluge. We shall find that the deluge was not a premeditated punishment brought on by the gods at their exclusive will. Though the deluge was a predictable event, it was an unavoidable one, a natural calamity in which the gods played not an active but a passive role. We will also show that the secret the gods swore to was a conspiracy against mankind to withhold from the earthlings the information they had regarding the coming avalanche of water, so that while the Nephilim saved themselves, mankind should perish. Much of our greatly increased knowledge of the deluge and the events preceding it comes from the text, When the Gods as Men. In this, the hero of the deluge was called Atrahasis. After describing the hard work of the Anunnaki, their mutiny, and the ensuing creation of the primitive worker, the epic relates how man, as we also know from the biblical version, began to procreate and multiply. In time, mankind began to upset Enlil. Enlil then ordered a punishment. We would expect to read now of the coming deluge. Instead, he called for the decimation of mankind through pestilence and sickness. Atrahasis appealed to Enki to undo his brother Enlil's plan. Soon thereafter, Enlil complained bitterly to the gods that the people have not diminished. They are more numerous than before. He then proceeded to outline the extermination of mankind through starvation. The sight of a starving, disintegrating mankind, parents eating their own children, brought about another confrontation between Enki and Enlil. Mankind received a message from Enki. Do not revere your gods. Do not pray to your goddesses. There was to be total disobedience. Enlil was filled with anger. He accused his brother of breaking plans agreed upon by the gods. But there was still a chance to doom mankind. A killing flood was in the offing. The approaching catastrophe had to be kept secret from the people. He called on the assembly to swear themselves to secrecy, and most important, to bind Prince Enki by an oath. At first Enki refused to take the oath. "Why will you bind me with an oath?" he asked. "Am I to raise my hands against my own humans?" But he was finally forced to take the oath. As Enki chose to interpret it, he swore not to reveal the secret of the coming deluge to the people, but could he not tell it to a wall? Calling Atrahasis to the temple, he made him stay behind a screen. Enki's advice to his faithful servant was to build a waterborne vessel. The Akkadian text quotes Enki as calling for a boat roofed over and below, hermetically sealed. Indeed, only such a boat could have survived an overpowering avalanche of waters. Aware of the impending calamity, the Nephilim took steps to save their own skins. With Earth about to be engulfed by water, they could go in only one direction for protection: skyward. When the storm that preceded the deluge began to blow, the Nephilim took off in their shuttlecraft and remained in Earth orbit until the waters began to subside. The day of the deluge, we will show, was the day the gods fled from the Earth. Orbiting Earth, the Nephilim saw a scene of destruction that affected them deeply. The Gilgamesh texts tell us that as the storm grew in intensity, not only could no one see his fellow, but neither could the people be recognized from the heavens. Crammed into their spacecraft, the gods strained to see what was happening on the planet from which they had just blasted off. The mother goddess herself, Ninhursag, bewailed what she was seeing. "My creatures have become like flies. They fill the rivers like dragonflies. Their fatherhood was taken by the rolling sea." Could she, indeed, save her own life, while mankind, which she helped create, was dying? Forced to abandon Earth, the gods suddenly realized how attached they had become to it and its inhabitants. In one craft, Anunnaki debated the merits of the orders given. In another, Ishtar cried out, "The olden days, alas, are turned into clay." The Anunnaki, who were in her craft, wept with her. Enki was in yet another spacecraft, or else he would have disclosed to the others that he had managed to save the seed of mankind. The ancient versions appear to imply that the Ark was carried to the region of Ararat by the torrential waves. The Nephilim, as we have shown, used the peaks of Ararat as landmarks from the very beginning. As the highest peaks in that part of the world, they can be expected to reappear first from under the mantle of water. Since Enki, the wise one, the all-knowing, certainly could figure that much out, we can surmise that he had instructed his servant to guide the Ark toward Ararat, planning an encounter from the very beginning. As soon as Atrahasis had landed, he slaughtered some animals and roasted them on fire. No wonder that the exhausted and hungry gods gathered like flies over the offering. Suddenly they realized that man and the food he grew and the cattle he raised were essential. When at length Enlil arrived and saw the Ark, he was enraged. But the logic of the situation and Enki's persuasion prevailed. Enlil made his peace with the remnants of mankind and took Atrahasis in his craft up to the eternal abode of the gods. What was this catastrophe? Predictable yet unavoidable. Our conclusion is that the events of the deluge or the flood relate to the Earth's last ice age and its catastrophic ending. Of the many theories advanced by the scientists, we're intrigued by the one suggested by Dr. John T. Holland of the University of Maine. He contended that the Antarctic ice sheet periodically breaks loose and slips into the sea, creating an abrupt and enormous tidal wave. Holland calculated that if only half the present ice sheet of Antarctica were to slip into the southern seas, The immense tidal wave that would follow would raise the level of all of the seas around the globe by some 60 feet. In 1964, A.T. Wilson of Victoria University in New Zealand offered the theory that ice ages ended abruptly in such slippages, not only in the Antarctic, but also in the Arctic. We feel that the various texts and facts gathered by us justify a conclusion that the deluge was the result of such a slippage in the Antarctic waters of billions of tons of ice, bringing an abrupt end